I've had some of these songs for a while, and just to actually, finally get them sounding right
There we
and
go.
recorded right.
As promised, there's the dog. Give me a second. I'll just go and get that and we'll pick up again, all right?
It's okay.
1 minute. Maverick, you're a nightmare.
You are listening to Freshly Squeezed.
Sometimes some music's more fashionable than others, but we just keep going. It is a frustrating thing, but like any band, you turn that frustration into a positive of like going out and proving anyone who's doubting us wrong.
Welcome to Freshly Squeezed, a new music podcast. I'm Jim. Nice one for checking out the pod. Hopefully, you're here to check out some of the very best in brand new music and perchance discover your next favourite band. If that is the case, you will not be disappointed because I've got another top 3 emerging acts which will feature on this podcast after a quick reminder to follow, to subscribe, to like, to save this podcast in whatever your podcast platform of choice is, whatever that button does. That way, you will never miss an episode and you will not miss out on hearing a band that could go on to be a festival headliner of the future. Maybe it's one of today's trio. Could it be balls out indie rock and roll from Stoke in the shape of SHADER?
Dance and dance and dance into the light. You'll never know what it feels like.
Maybe it's the new musical direction being taken by the ace Jacob Reddy, who has switched indie pop on his new project No One for this.
Chemical imbalance in my mind. Got me thinking that the roses don't need sunshine. I'm self-aware, I start to fall this time.
Or it could be Bolton singer-songwriter Felix Hill, who is back with a new tune, Comfortable Silence.
We could sit in silence and still say so much.
You'll hear more of those tunes and more on the stories behind those tunes over the next 20 minutes or so, starting with Felix, who's actually making his second appearance on Freshly Squeezed. Welcome back, Felix.
Thank you for having me back.
We last had you on back in August of last year. What's been going on since? I'm seeing this as kind of like, those family letters you get at Christmas that kind of just pick out the big highlights. So over the last 9 months, what have been the 3 big things that have gone on?
Well, I think the releasing of the song Save the Tears for Later in August was a big moment because I've loved that song for a long time. It was great to actually finally get that out. Same with this Comfortable Silence coming out. I mean, a lot of these songs I've had for quite some time, and if you've ever come and seen me live, you will have heard a few of these songs in the past few gigs that I've done. So again, to get this sounding like I wanted it to is really great. And then also in December, I had another song, Tide Tracks, come out, but also we played a gig in London around the release of that, and that was a lot of fun. So I'd say probably those 3 things.
You mentioned Save the Tears for Later, which was actually, like I say, last time we spoke, it was back in August. You just released that at the time. That was a tune written with Dan McDougall, Liam Gallagher's drummer. We're back with Comfortable Silence now, the brand new tune. Any exciting collaborations going on behind the scenes on this one, or is it 100% Felix?
It's written 100% by me, but I sort of mixed it and recorded it in Liverpool at Kempston Street Studios with Ben Etches, who's really, really great at mixing, and he's got some great ideas. So yeah, I was very lucky to be recording that with him because I think it turned out really great and he did a great job.
With that tune that you released in August, like I say, in collaboration with Dan, it had that kind of Liam Gallagher acoustic feel to it. And then in December, you released the follow-up to that, which was called Tire Tracks, which was very different. It was almost a big indie anthem, and it felt a little bit Cortinas-esque almost, I thought. And then with this new tune, Comfortable Silence, I think there's a touch of elbow about it. So you've got kind of 3 big Mancunian tick boxes there. Do you feel that you're heavily influenced by those Mancunian sounds, or am I just projecting onto you a little bit?
No, I think my music is so wrapped up in Manchester from all the gigging and everything I've done. And obviously I live in Bolton, very, very close to Manchester. I think it's hard to escape that, really. A lot of the time, I'm maybe not even completely aware of that, but I mean, you can hear it. And a lot of the artists I listen to are from Manchester. So yeah, you can definitely hear that influence. Some of it, I guess, is intentional, but a lot of it is just from what I've listened to and grew up listening to that has managed to sort of filter its way in.
Do you enjoy playing with those different styles and different sounds? Because those 3 singles, if we take them as kind of a snapshot of your work, there's 3 very different directions there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things I'm most passionate about is the live shows, and I really want to make it as dynamic and interesting as possible. You want the sort of the high highs, really fast elements, and the slower sing along ones. And I just really like making it a bit of a sort of, have a bit of a flow to it, and so it really feels like you're seeing a whole show rather than just sort of seeing 8 or however many songs sort of in a row.
One of the things I really love about this new tune is that it just shows off your fairly unique vocal style. Are you conscious with the fact that you sound very different as a singer-songwriter? And is that something you've kind of crafted and harboured, or is it just the way naturally that you sing?
I didn't really think too much of it until I started, writing them and recording them. And that's always been the thing that people have sort of picked out, especially is the voice is quite unique. And I don't know why it is as unique as people seem to think it does sound. I do think it sounds slightly different, but I mean, a lot of the things I have heard, like comparisons to sort of like Morrissey before and Paul Heaton. And I think it's just sort of that northern sound, which yeah, but for whatever reason, it's sort of come out in a fairly unique way. I don't know if it's for me to say why it sounds like that, but yeah, it's definitely something that I try to play on more now to try and make it sound as clear and great as possible. Really,
I'd not picked up on the Morrissey thing before, actually, but it's definitely there. It's like the that kind of like top end. No, it's definitely there. Over the last year or so, the releases haven't really been thick and fast from you, I don't think. Is that just a kind of consequence of where you are at your stage as an emerging artist, that you've got to be patient, time and money both play their parts in it, and you just have to release what you can when you can, rather than going, right, every 3 weeks I'm going to have another single?
Yeah, I think especially with where I'm at the moment, if you actually want the songs to sound the way that you're wanting them to sound, you can't. It's very difficult to sort of be releasing them every 4 to 6 weeks, which is what a lot of people recommend that you do. But a lot of the time, there, I think the quality that you're getting it's just not really quite up to the standard of what I would want it to be. But also, in reality, it is expensive, like everything creative in music. It's difficult to do that. But I mean, I've also been writing and getting things ready so that hopefully it'll be a bit smoother and a bit more consistent towards the end of the year.
Is that with a view to there being some kind of body of work released, whether it's an EP or an album or something like that, by the time you get to that stage?
Yeah, I'd love to do something like an EP or something. That's something I've thought about for a while. So I think it's sort of just ploughing on and promoting these songs as much as I can and sort of seeing where we are next year in relation to releasing something more, maybe.
Do you think you'd have to think about that differently if you got to that stage where you're releasing, like I say, 4-track EP or something like that? Because it's important that hangs together musically as a collection. So do you think you'd approach the writing of that in a different way to maybe you approach your singles?
I think definitely I would, because it goes back to the stuff I was saying about the live shows and how, I want them to be sort of, still have a consistent sound, but have like a variation. And I'd like it to flow as well as it could do. I mean, whenever I travel anywhere, for example, I'm always listening to like a full album. Usually I make an effort to listen to one I've never heard all the way through before. So a lot of the time I'm already kind of, I guess, doing that kind of research into just seeing what I like that flows in an album or an EP, so that if I get round to that point, I've already got quite a clear idea in my head of what would work.
So last time we spoke, you might remember we played a little game. It didn't go so well. It was seeing if you could identify people based on their place-like names, like Felix Hill.
Yes.
If you missed it last time, here's a reminder of how that went.
I'm going to give you some clues to some people. I want to see if you can complete the person I'm talking about. US actor and comedian Chris Rock. Okay. Iconic music producer, produced Cortina's St. Jude. Stephen.
I don't know.
Stephen Street. This game was much better in my head than it's turning out to be.
I think I'm just a rubbish contestant. I don't think it's the...
We're going to crack on. UK singer-songwriter, love as a hat, James...
I'm not sure.
James Bay.
So I thought we'd keep it a little bit simpler this time and finish this interview with one big question, and that question is Desert Island crisps. Very simple. If you were stranded on a desert island and you could only have one brand and flavour of crisps to keep with you for sustenance, what is it you're going for?
Wow. You've probably asked the right person, because they are one of my weaknesses, definitely. I don't really eat anything like chocolate or anything, but crisps are definitely kind of my kryptonite, I think.
There's a reason I ask this question, Felix.
I'd say that, I think the flavour is definitely salt and vinegar. I think they're definitely, like, consistently are always my favourite, I think, regardless of what brand it is. I'd probably say something like McCoy's. I think they're really good. But I think there's a few that I choose between, but I think push comes to shove, I'd probably say McCoy's salt and vinegar.
Lock it in. It's a safe choice. I can't say I agree with it on the salt and vinegar front. I do like a McCoy, but I'm not a big salt and vinegar fan, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that will agree with you. A safe choice. Felix,
Thank you.
really nice to catch up with you. Really enjoying the new tune, Comfortable Silence, as well. And fingers crossed that that bigger record is on the horizon as well. Cheers for coming on Freshly Squeezed.
Thank you for having me.
We don't have to talk. We could sit in silence and still say so much. We don't have to talk. We could sit in silence. We don't have to talk. We could sit in silence.
That's Felix Hill. I really like his voice on that new tune, and I suggest you go and check out his other stuff as well. Very eclectic, via the links in the podcast description. Going to feature another singer-songwriter now who's decided to pull on the handbrake and take his musical journey in a completely different direction. Jacob Reddy, talking about his new musical project, No One. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on.
No problem at all. I'm not sure why I called you Jake there. Welcome, Jacob. So I think before we chat, we need a little bit of context going into this, because musically where you are now with this new project is a massive departure from where you were a few years ago. And I just wanted to illustrate that a little bit for people who aren't familiar with that journey by playing a little bit of one of your older songs. So I thought you're probably more au fait with your musical back catalogue than I am. What from the past do you think best encompasses that period musically for you?
Well, that's a good question. I'd say because it's one of them where even the old music took a few different turns. But I think for me, I did a song called Kings. It was the first ever song that I made many years ago. And I did a re-release of it a few years back as well. And I think that's kind of, that was always a sort of favourite song.
Okay, well, we'll set the scene with a little bit of this. This is from the Jacob Reddy back catalogue.
Where did the time go when we were younger? We weren't alone 'cause we had each other. We had so much, growing up wasn't hard. But now we're slowly drifting apart. Can you hear the voices out loud? We want too much, but we stay proud. We were just kids in the cities that we loved, happy enough to wish up to the stars. We laughed, we sang down for the world we made, always ready for the next bright day. We were kings of the cities that we live in forever and ever.
Talk me through how you go from that music you were making then to this brand new musical project that we're going to hear from in a minute.
Yeah, I think it's been something that I've kind of been wanting to build on and work on for a while. I've always been someone who's into the heavier side of music, particularly like my alt rock. The first ever gig that I went to when I was 7, I went to go and see Muse, and they were where I first sort of fell in love with music. And that's when I started kind of learning to play guitar and all that sort of stuff. And heavy music's really been something that's stayed alongside of me, but never necessarily something that I'd ever thought about sort of writing in that style. But then I think particularly I started at uni, and I started obviously having a lot more time to work on songwriting and work on making new music and kind of hitting a new surroundings around where I was. And I kind of felt like I was writing these heavier songs that almost felt more personal and I guess in touch with like me as a person and the kind of music that I wanted to be writing.
Because it was such a shift, I think, from what you're doing before, is that why you've decided to call the project No One rather than keeping it under the heading Jacob Reddy?
Yeah, I think I wanted to give it a bit of a fresh start, and it's like you say, it's something that is so different. I think there's still things that carry over. I think thematically, a lot of the songs are quite similar, but obviously musically, it's such a shift. And I wanted to think of a way to be able to start this new project and give something new and something that I'm really enjoying, whilst also, I guess, not completely disregarding everything else.
Is it still a solo project at heart, or have you got kind of a band with you for this one?
Most of what I'm doing is solo with the new project. I've been lucky enough to have a few musicians helping me on the tracks as well, and in the studio recording. And when I'm looking to obviously get the songs out live, it's quite an interesting one. I've not got around to playing any of them live yet under the new name, but the plan for that is to play them as a full band venture. So that's something that I'm working on at the moment, getting all the pieces together so that I can finally get out and get performing these new songs.
How much hesitation did you have before just ripping it up and starting it again with a new name and a new musical identity? Because you'd had some decent success as Jacob Reddy. There was a bit of a buzz in the Northwest. You got to play Glasgow, and now you're kind of starting again, I guess.
I'll be honest, it was really nerve-wracking at the start, especially considering I'd almost taken a bit of a quieter year with the old music, and it had been a while since I'd done anything itself, and then to come back with something that is so different, obviously something where a lot of the people already following me and already listening to the music are obviously used to something so different. So it was super nerve-wracking to go, this is a completely new direction that I'm wanting to go down, and hoping that people who like the old music would follow along to the new stuff, and also hoping that I could start reaching new people. But I think at the same time, as I say, I was really happy with these songs, and they feel a lot more personal to me, some of them. So I found that transition in itself somewhat easier for me, because I'm happy with what it is that the songs are, and I'm excited to promote them and tell people about them, and excited for people to hear them.
Obviously, it's not just a transition musically, there's a transition in terms of who you're playing music to. I'm sure some of the fans do come through, but obviously there's going to be new fans as well. Do the different scenes have different audiences and different reactions, and how have you felt that change?
I think definitely so. And I think, as I mentioned, a lot of this almost comes from a music fan myself, and someone who's spent a lot of time at indie shows watching gigs. It also spent a lot of time at heavier shows and seen. But I think there's also a lot of crossover, and I think I've been really fortunate so far with the release of the song that a lot of the old fans are getting on board with it and saying, well, actually, I do quite enjoy this. And even though it's different, they're getting into the music, and that's something that's been really nice for me to see.
Jacob, nice to speak to you. Cool to hear you doing something different. We're going to play the new tune, Roses from No One, next on Freshly Squeezed, but cheers for coming on.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much for having me.
I breathe a different air to you. In my quiet corner of this room, I broke barriers to darker blue. My palette plates an open wound. I don't belong, but I don't know why. Dark thoughts in my head every time I try to survive. This chemical imbalance in my mind got me thinking that the roses don't need sunshine. I'm self-aware, I start to fall this time. The roses don't say lie. I guess the roses don't say. Can you hear the birds sing when no one else is listening? Our voices all just echoing, and it all amounts to nothing. I don't belong, but I don't know why. Dark thoughts in my head every time I try to survive. This chemical imbalance in my mind got me thinking that the roses don't need sunshine. I'm self-aware, I start to fall this time. The roses don't say lie. I guess the roses don't say.
Honestly, I'm finding it slightly hard in my head to get around how that is the same person as the Jacob Reddy I know, but that's my problem. And undoubtedly the new stuff is sounding ace. That's No One, by the way, No, K-N-O-W, One, if you're looking to find more online and you need to search it, or just follow the links in the podcast description. Finally, on Freshly Squeezed, we're heading to Stoke to speak to SHADER, and the main man from SHADER, Stu, joins me. Thanks for coming on, mate.
How you doing?
First time on the podcast for SHADER, but you and I, we've spoken a few times through the years. Now, 6 years on, 6 years in as a band, well, 6 years from your debut release anywhere, I'm guessing there's a little bit more time has passed for you as a collective. How do you look back on that time as a band? Because you've got past the stage of this just being a side project. At 6 years, it's getting serious, right? Do those early days feel a very long way off?
We were on about this the other day. It's kind of gone really fast in some respects, and in other respects, it feels like it's been quite a bit of time. So early last year, we sort of had a bit of a reshuffle in the band lineup. And so it changed the dynamics a little bit with the songwriting and the sound. And so we kind of feel like a fresh band again.
Right.
It's kind of like, there's like a rejuvenated sort of energy for the band at the minute. So looking back over, when you say that, like 6 years, it's like, crikey, it is quite a long time. But we're like brothers, really. So 6 years is not really, doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't feel like that long, if I'm honest.
When you do shuffle things about and you change a lineup and you bring new members in, how does that change the dynamics within a band? Does it almost create an instant hierarchy where you've got the OG members and the new people coming in? And then how do you flatten that down so you've got a kind of equitable base, if you like?
I think really, we lost our lead guitarist. And so the guy that's joined, Rick, number one, he was a fan of the band anyway. He used to come to the gigs. And so when the opportunity came for him, there was a position for someone to join the band. We weren't really looking for a lead guitarist as much as we were looking for someone who could play guitar, obviously, but was more of like a vibe within the band and the chemistry. So he fitted in to us. We didn't have to force anything. And that was why we knew it was such a simple sort of transition. It was just, he fitted in like he was a member of the band anyway, even when he wasn't in the band. He was such a charismatic kind of guy. So in regards to like writing songs and stuff, it's always sort of started with me coming in with a melody or something anyway, and then we sort of build it from that. And sometimes the songs are at 75% done anyway, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but we all sort of respect each other's opinion within the band anyway, between Tom, the drummer, Daz, the bass player, me, and now Rick. It's like we've all got different vibes of what we're into outside of the band. And so it all comes into the melting pot and it just works. It's just that now I've took on a role of playing a lot more lead guitar. My style of lead guitar playing is a lot more influenced from sort of rock and roll, as you'll hear on the new single, Unknown Vision. So, it's a fresh sort of vibe for us, and we're just loving it, really. It's just going forward very smoothly.
This is the first new music from SHADER in a year now. Has that mini hiatus pause purely been down to the lineup change, or has there been another reason for taking that kind of step back for a little bit?
It's both. It was we had to get Rick up to scratch with the songs that we've got in the set already and sort of rehearse a lot with him. And also we did want to take a break from putting any new music out and ultimately gigging as much. It was a little bit of a like, let's get our bearings, let's take a rest, because we have hit it hard for a few years. So yeah, it was a bit of a recalibration, really.
With the new tune, Unknown Vision, you kind of hinted at it a moment ago. It's maybe a little bit more classic than what you've done before, but musically, I don't think it's gone a million miles away from what has happened previously. And it's got that one thing that I think all your tunes have got. It's got an aspiration to be played on a big stage, unashamedly big as always. With a band that's at the stage you're at, you're making progress, but you're still probably a way off being that festival headliner, for example. Is there a frustration that maybe you have these big tunes that are designed for stadiums and big stages, but they're not yet filling their potential?
Yeah, totally. It can be like any band in sort of our position, our level. It's like, we've done support slots with bands like The Enemy, and it's like you play to their crowd, and these songs are sort of reciprocated with their audience in the way we expect them to. And it's like, there you go. It's like a proof that this music is viable in that audience. And at the same time, we wouldn't be doing a tour like The Enemy would be doing. So, it's frustrating, but the songs keep us going. And like this, like Unknown Vision's like it is almost like the lyrically and the feel of it is always saying, we've still got the goods and we're not giving up. And because we've got this like newfound sort of freshness and energy for the band, it's just onwards. We're very strong-minded individuals, and we know how the music business works a little bit, and how sometimes some music's more fashionable than others, but we just keep going. It is a frustrating thing, but like any band, it's you turn that frustration into a positive of like going out and proving anyone who's doubting us wrong, and also it's just cements the songs for what they are, of how much we believe in them when we play them to people.
That drive and that aspiration, I think you take into the studio with you in terms of energy, but also in terms of kind of who you've worked with. You look back at it was the last EP, you were working with Nick Bryan of Oasis fame. Was it the last EP?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
This time around, you're working with Gareth Nuttall, who is fast becoming the go-to producer for emerging artists, and he's also worked with the likes of the K's and the Lottery Winners. What was it like working with Gareth on this one? What did he bring to that process?
Well, the first thing Gareth did, which blew us all away, is we brought Unknown Vision to him, which was a song we tried out twice live, and it was about 5.5 minutes long. So we knew we'd have to cut it down for any potential of a single. And his first thing was to literally chop out parts of the song, but we still didn't lose any of the vibe. And we were blown away how quickly he just sat us down and said, get rid of that, put that there, move that there, put your guitar solo there instead of there. And then when we heard it back, it was just a genius move very quickly. And that's when we kind of knew we were with someone that doesn't mess around in these situations and kind of knows how to take the music to, the forefront of what's happening now, with bands like Roller and Rolling People and Lottery Winners and K's, that, it's putting us in that same peripheral as them, with a 3-minute song that's got the goods and sounds massive, on the radio and on Spotify or whatever you're listening to it on.
Clearly a man who knows what he's doing. As you mentioned a minute ago, you are a band from Stoke, for those who don't know. You maybe, I think, sometimes lean north in terms of influences. There is that kind of classic Oasis feel about some of your tunes, those big rock riffs in there. But how does Stoke feel as kind of a scene at the moment? Does it have a musical identity?
I feel that there's a lot of different genres going on. So I wouldn't say there's an actual scene for particularly like, an indie band like ourselves. As much as I feel we get like, we push towards the Manchester thing with our influences, I hear as much in Echo and the Bunnymen or the Beatles from Liverpool, or, even the songs that we've got coming out that we've been working on, which there's hints of sort of, there's a little bit of a Kasabian vibe in there and a little bit of a Nirvana vibe. So there's a lot for us to still explore sonically. Going back to Stoke, as a collective scene, I don't think you could pin it down as there's a specific scene waiting to sort of blow up. But there's a lot of good artists in Stoke, like singer-songwriters up to bands. I just think, it only takes one of these bands or artists to sort of poke their head out a little bit more, and potentially, you get these labels and whatever from London or potentially Manchester sort of looking at us. But it is what it is. And, I said Kasabian before, but Kasabian were from Leicester. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, they did what they did, and they were a Leicester band. So, we know that, it's a tough deal sometimes saying you're from Stoke. It's a lot easier to say you're from Manchester, or a lot easier to say you're from London. But again, like I said before, we're not afraid. We just push forward with what we believe in.
But also, I think you don't get those preconceptions, because if you're a band from Manchester, there is an assumption that you will sound like the Stone Roses or the Happy Mondays or Oasis, whereas I don't think you get that with Stoke. You don't get people going, they're going to sound just like Robbie Williams.
No, you don't.
Stu, I hope it's not another 12 months till we get to hear more new music from Shader, but it's good to have you back, and it's a cracking return as well. We're going to play the brand new tune, Unknown Vision, on Freshly Squeezed. Nice one for coming on.
Cheers, Jim. Nice one, mate.
And hear the drums pound the night. You can dance and dance and dance into the light. You'll never know to wanna know what it feels like. This life is an unknown vision above. This life is an unknown vision above. This life is
a big, massive behemoth of a tune from SHADER, sounding confident, sounding ace. More from all the bands on this week's show via the podcast description. That is where you will find the links to more of their music and some really interesting ones to dig into today, particularly Jacob Reddy's back catalogue, Felix Hill to see what he's doing, and that lot SHADER, who haven't changed massively, but certainly there is a subtle difference with that new lineup coming through the new music they're making. Loads of other cool things to be found in those links as well, including the place to find our weekly new music playlist, how to find us on socials, and where you can find more about Spin Class. They're the band who make the Freshly Squeezed theme tune, but that's kind of doing a bit of a disservice. They're so much more than the music that you hear in the background. Loads of tunes, dead cool, a bit like a Mancunian version of the band Spaced. So go give them a check out along with all that other stuff as well. A bit of new music to get yourselves stuck into between now and the next episode, which will be here on Monday. That's it for this week. Hit subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers to your ears.
The award-winning Freshly Squeezed, a new music podcast, was devised, produced and posted by Jim Salveson. Sound design and additional production by Ant McGinley. Theme music, Blue Blazer, is written and produced by Spin Class. Stop.